Making inferences. Making an inference is putting two and two together. When we make inferences, we are putting together something that we have read or observed with something that we already know. So to make an inference, we use our background knowledge plus clues from the text. And good readers piece together clues from the text and filter them or go through them with their background knowledge to make these inferences. Inferencing right here is looking for clues. We have to look for clues within our text. One thing we always need to make sure we're doing is asking, what do the characters say? What's in their dialogue? And what do they do? What actions do they show us that give us more clues? When we infer, we understand the text better. Making inferences is looking for those clues in the text we just talked about, using what you already know, which is your schema and your background knowledge, then asking yourself some questions and coming up with an answer, and we make an inference. When you make an inference, you go beyond the author's words to understand what is not said in the text. And we use that by reading between the lines. We put all these pieces together, the clues in the text, your background knowledge or your schema, what you already know. We ask some questions to ourselves, and then we infer, we make an inference. Remember, you have to go beyond what the author's words say. It's not going to be stated. We have to read between those lines by looking for clues. Again, inference. The authors don't always tell their reader everything. They rely on the reader to use inferential thinking to understand everything going on in the story. We have to use those text clues, plus our own background knowledge or our schema. And when we add those together, we get our inference. Text clues. Let's practice one. My heart started to race as I stared down at the broken pieces. How will I be able to explain this when Mom gets home? I thought to myself. Then over here, with my background knowledge, I think the character's a kid because they mention their mom. I also think the kid is nervous because that is what happens when your heart races. My inference, the kid accidentally broke something important to his mom, and he's nervous about telling her when she gets home. Remember, when we make these inferences, you're using what you know or your background knowledge plus what the text says for those text clues to get that inference. Let's practice one together. Corinda smoothed out a wrinkle in her clothes when she proceeded down the road. She covered her eyes when she saw multiple guard dogs. She yelped in fear at the startling sight. Theatrical noises amassed and meandered into the section that surrounded her. Corinda most likely leaped because A, she did not want to have to run, B, she was part of the theater, or C, she did not expect dogs. Well, let's look at this. She's smoothing out a wrinkle. She's covering her eyes when she saw these guard dogs. She also yelped in fear at a startling sight. This word theatrical noises amassed and meandered in the section that surrounded her. Well, I know that a theater has sections, and she's smoothing out, she's covering, and she yelped. Those are actions. So to me, I think that B is the best answer. She was part of the theater. Let's practice another one. Laurel listened to her friend whistle when she walked down the path. Laurel exhaled and walked rapidly when she saw a possible secret door. Her eyes widened. At once, a ray of light permeated through the darkened, empty space surrounding her. What will Laurel most likely do next? Enter the secret door? Tell her friend to leave quickly? Or walk home alone? Well, let's see. She's with a friend and she's listening to her whistle, right? She listened to her friend whistle. So I don't think she'd tell her friend to leave quickly. We also see a possible secret door, right? I know from most of the movies I've seen and books I've read, when there's a secret door, like in James and the Giant Peach, James goes in that door. Or The Secret Garden, or Chronicles of Narnia, somebody always goes in it. And when light opens it, And the text also says that she walked rapidly and her eyes widened. To me, that shows that she was excited and she ran to it. So I think the best choice is B. She's going to enter that secret door. Let's try another. Stars are in the sky. Long ago, people used the stars to know how to get to different places. They did not have clocks like we do today. Sailors used the stars to know where to sail. People used to places that stars were at in the sky to help them know when to plant seeds. I think that last sentence should be people used places where stars were at in the sky, and they used that location of the stars to help them know where to plant seeds. So which one is most likely true? A, stars were too big in the sky. B, stars were better long ago. Or stars were very important to people. Well, I know from my background knowledge that stars were never too big for the sky. They weren't ever too big for the sky. Stars were better long ago. This did talk about long ago in the text, but I'm not sure they were better. And stars were very important to people. Well, I know stars are important. I know people, from my own background knowledge, I know that slaves used the stars to navigate how to get north. So they did. That was important. I know some people use astrology, the way the stars are, to predict like their good luck and things. So there's two things I know in my schema. The text also says that they used them for clocks, sailors used them to know where to sail, and people used them to know where to plant seeds. So I'm going to infer that the best choice is stars are very important to people. Let's try one more. Long ago, some families went to new states. They were given land for a small fee. On the land, the people could plant their own foods. They had to make their own homes, too. It took many hours to pull up weeds. It also took a long time to cut grass, too. So what is most likely true? People had to work hard on their new land? Life is the same today as it was long ago? Or C, there were only a few people that cut grass? Well, first of all, my background knowledge, I already know that life is not the same as it was long ago. And let's see, they were given new land, yes, but they had to plant their own food, right? And they had to make their own homes too. And it took hours to pull weeds, and it took a long time to cut grass. Well, it does mention grass, but it never says anything about a few people cutting grass. And I know that it did cause a lot of hard work and hours to make a home on a new land. I remember that from Sign of the Beaver and Matt. So the inference I'm going to make is people had to work very hard on their new land. All right, to sum it up, inferencing is putting two and two together. We make inferences by putting together something that we have read or have observed with something that we already know within our schema, right? Or our background knowledge. When we do our inferring or our inferencing, we have to look for those clues within the text. Something that's really important to do is to pay attention to what those characters say and do. What their quotes are, that dialogue, and the actions can tell us a lot about what's going on. When we infer, it helps us to better understand that text. And making those inferences is a process. We have to use those clues in the text like we talked about, and we have to use our schema and our background knowledge. Then we have to ask some questions. Then we finally infer. Making inferences is putting those pieces together. Because remember, when we infer, we become a better reader and understand that text better. When we make an inference, we have to go beyond the author's word to understand what is not said in that text. Remember, inferences aren't given to us. We have to use our background knowledge plus those clues in a text to make an inference.